Hi.
My name is Bobi Wine. Thank you, and I'll let the directors introduce themselves.
I'm Moses Bwayo, co-director and one of the cinematographers of the film.
I'm Christopher Sharp, and I'm a co-director and a producer on the film.
Super. Okay, the seats are set, the light is set. Are you ready for the interrogation? Yeah, okay. I'll start with you, Christopher. So tell me, what drew you to make a film about our struggle for freedom and democracy in Uganda? And why do you think it's important, not just for Uganda, but the whole world?
Yeah, thank you, Bobi. So I actually grew up in Uganda, as did my father, so I had a big connection to the country. And I knew about Bobi's music. I was a fan of Bobi's music before I actually met Bobi. When I met Bobi and Barbie in Europe in 2017, firstly, I was fully aware of the political situation in Uganda and that they'd never had a peaceful transition, and that the current, let me call him dictator, the current president had been in power for 34 years. And I knew quite a lot about the politics. I knew the elections were a sham. I knew there was a lot of oppression. And it kind of felt to me like it was a really hopeless situation. And it was one of those countries where you just feel it's always going to be like that. But when I met Bobi and Barbie, I suddenly realized it didn't have to be like that, because in Bobi and Barbie, Uganda had two extraordinary heroes who were willing to, as you've seen in the film, risk everything to try and liberate their people. So firstly, I was suddenly elated that, I'd met these two incredible people. And secondly, I thought there was hope, and it needed to be documented, and that, we all know how fragile democracy is, and then once you let it go, it's very hard to get back. And that's exactly what had happened in Uganda. They had a constitution which had been eroded, and it had ended up just with this sort of shadowy affair where the whole country was under oppression, and then here were these people. So yeah, that's what drew me to telling the story.
Thank you, Chris, and I'm glad you talked about Barbie. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Barbie is around here with us, and oh, come on, don't come out yet. Stand up again, Barbie. Come on, stand up again. That's beautiful, Barbie. You came out so early. I wanted to put a condition that until you talk to me nicely, I won't show you, Barbie. Thanks, Barbie. Christopher, we appreciate this film. We're so grateful because this film helps bring out the much wanted attention on the situation in Uganda, and in a different way, it set certain layer of safety for me, my wife, my colleagues, and those that I work with in Uganda. So we really appreciate this golden opportunity for the film. And I've shared with you, but I've also shared with you in the past that the film honestly only scratches the surface of the brutality in Uganda. The brutality is so much that the film does not bring all the brutality to the screen. Why was that?
Well, Moses, tell us about the brutality in Uganda, because you've really witnessed it in a most horrific way.
Yeah, thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor for us to be here to share this film. I must say it's the power of God that we are alive today to witness the success of this film, because as you see in the film, yes, there's these violent scenes, but some of the violence that happened was really shocking, and indeed, like Bobi says, we only scratched a little bit of this, so that the images would not be disturbing, or we didn't want to traumatize our audience. but you know, we filmed incredibly violent scenes, and you know, people who had been kidnapped and they had just been, you know, dropped on the streets, or we know people who have disappeared, friends of Bobi Wine, family members, and those close to him in the movement, you know. Some journalists who until today have lost some abilities of their, you know, of their physical bodies. And this has been going on for 38 years today. 38, you know, since Ronald Reagan, Uganda has had the same president. He's a repressive, strong man, you know, military regime. So indeed, we only wanted to welcome the audience to Uganda, to the Ugandan story, the Ugandan struggle for democracy. So we hope that, you know, I mean, as Bobi says, you know, the Ugandan people today really appreciate the story and the film coming out. But yeah, you know, we carried through. We wanted to, you know, not forget those stories. We wanted, we owed those individuals, we owed them, you know, so that their stories don't disappear. And that's why we made this film.
Thank you very much, Moses. But still, again, coming to you, Chris. Yeah, you've mentioned it before that you had 4,000 hours of footage. If somebody wanted Bobi in a blue shirt on a Sunday, he would get it. Yeah, there was indeed a lot of violence on the side, although you had caption of other things, but reducing it into 2 hours and omitting all the violence that some of us thought would be evidence, say so and so was killed and this is here, this body was brutalized and this was there. Why did you reduce all the violence to only the violence that we saw?
Yeah, I mean, actually, when Bobi first saw the film, so Bobi saw a pretty final cut of the film, and obviously we wanted to show it to him because we wanted to make sure we weren't compromising anyone in the film or anyone who was going to be in great danger. Well, we did take out a lot of the violence. It just felt so overwhelming that it was hard almost to follow the story because you just were in this state of trauma. And we thought it was best to show the pain of Uganda through Bobi and Barbie and those close to them. And we, you know, sticking close to Bobi's family your family, it seemed like the best way of just telling the story. And I think the violence, I mean, you know, when I've shown it to audiences and they say the violence is shocking, but obviously it's nothing compared to what it really was for all of you guys. But it just felt the right way of doing it to ensure that people could watch the film. In violence, there is some violence and it's inferred. I mean, in the same way as the election, I mean, originally we had in a cut, we had a lot of the rigging, we had policemen stuffing ballots. Now, so imagine a big black rubbish bag full of Museveni votes and a policeman is just stuffing them in. Or you have guys sitting on the floor with the ballot slips and just going through ticking Museveni's name just for hours, just ticking and ticking and ticking. We would go and follow Bobi and he would turn up and there would be thousands of people come to see him. And then Museveni's candidate would go and no one would turn up. And then Museveni would get 100% of the vote. And not 100% of the vote on the day, 100% of the registered vote. So from the register, which was, I don't know, a year ago, no one had died, no one had not turned up to vote. So, you know, the election is just an unbelievable sham. I mean, I remember asking Bobi, I said, why do you bother? Because Museveni, you can imagine him sitting around a table and saying, what percentage shall we win by this time? But I mean, Bobi's point was so spot on. If you don't go through it and you don't show there's opposition, even though you know the result, it's better to get out there and be counted and show it's a sham, show that people are fed up, show the crowds. Isn't that right, Bobi? I mean, you explain it better.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, we can go on and on and on about explaining that. I like that you point out that on some voting centers, Museveni got 100%, including those that had died, turned out to vote. Only he didn't mention that he got 100% of the registered voters voting for him by midday. You know, Moses, I'm telling to you, you know, I've been pursued. Many of the people around me have been targeted. You were always by my side with the camera through all these hostile situations. You got arrested, thrown into prison, beaten, shot in the face. Talk about the dangers that you faced as a person on this mission.
Yeah, so, you know, it was shocking that the state would go so far to use its, you know, apparatus to start targeting people who were covering the situation in Uganda. I mean, I'm very lucky that I'm still alive today to witness what's happening. But, you know, I have colleagues that have disappeared and you know, we don't know where they are. I was shot in the face at close range while filming. You know, in fact, I must say, because the guy pointed the gun at me, and it's not the first time a gun was pointed in my face, but it's the first time actually someone shot. But when he did point the gun, I had a camera just, you know, just holding it under here. And when I saw the gun in my face, I just put the camera in my face, and most of the projectile hit the camera. It still hit me right here, you know. I'd never felt, you know, that kind of impact. I hit the ground, blacked out, you know, struggled, and I just got up, and this guy was just next to me aiming for another shot, right? And I ran, jumped on a motorcycle and got myself out of that. But before that, I had been locked up in prison, you know, interrogated, arrested a couple of times. But these were things to deter me from, you know, covering the situation. I had been following Bobi. We followed Bobi for like, what, 5 years, 6 years?
5 years, yeah.
About 5 years. So I had been identified by the end of 2022, by the beginning of 2022 after the election. There were 2 attempted kidnaps on my wife. So our producer, John Patsek, and Christopher and myself, we decided that before we put out the film, I and my wife had to flee the country. So as we speak today, I'm an asylee here. I'm seeking political asylum, myself and my wife.
Wow.
These are the costs, you know, for making these stories, you know. But again, I'll say it was a blessing to be there, to witness and to capture this story. You know, this story is a story of a nation. For the longest time, you know, young people were standing up, led by Bobi and those close to him. They were standing up, dreaming of a new future that we all know and cherish so much, right? So, yeah, I hope that, you know, our struggle is not ignored. And I know that you can all do something about this situation. And I hope that you do something about this.
Yes.
Thanks, Moses. That's so powerful. I like it. And as you speak, I'm struggling to, you know, keep the smile. But one thing I like about us Ugandans, there's so much humor that even in serious situations, we smile away.
Yeah, I'll say something about that. We would be tear gassed, shot at. There were 7 attempted assassinations on this man. But just after those events, he would be throwing jokes in the car, right? Just to make the situation light, you know, because, I mean, you know, there's so much going on, but, you know, you have to be human at the end of the day, you know, and when you smile, it's wonderful.
Indeed, in fact, it reminds me, Moses, of how we used to live. There's a time when we turned into guerrilla fighters, only that you were shooting with your camera. There was a situation where it became hard when the camera was so feared that it became hard to sneak a camera into a place than to sneak in a gun.
Yes.
And you remember you were such a guerrilla in moving and hiding your cards,
footage and
yeah.
all that. Yeah.
I want to know, Moses, was it difficult getting the footage out of Uganda? Of course it was, but please tell us about how hard it was and how were you able to get that footage out of Uganda?
Yeah, the conventional way of working does not work in Uganda. You have to find a way and Bobi calls it the rubber dub style. So we had to to reinvent, ways of working around this. And I had friends, colleagues, Caucasian journalists that I could hand cards to, and on multiple occasions I would send drives to Christopher, but through BBC journalists, some really great friends that would be traveling back and forth. Or just random people whom we knew would deliver these drives, or send them through other names, so that courier services do not block them, because we were followed everywhere, and when you're identified, you find ways of operating that are not conventional. And I had filmed. We kind of cooked this up very early with Chris. I was like, Chris, so when I get arrested, what happens? And we figured out we needed to film Bobi, like a bunch of cards of Bobi at home with the kids, playing with the dogs, just doing family stuff. So whenever I was picked up, that's the footage that the police got. I would make sure I've dumped cards and stuff like that. So yeah, we had to find smart ways of operating.
Thank you. Moses, did you find anything surprising? And if so, what did you find surprising in this process of making this film?
Wow. Surprising. I think the level of violence was really, I knew the regime was violent, but I didn't think they would go to the limits that they did. I think that was really shocking. Closing down media houses that would host Bobi, shutting down radio stations, that would play his music, and indeed journalists being arrested, being beaten. And Bobi, I think you could describe this day very well. There's a time when Bobi was delivering, a statement to the United Nations Human Rights Office, and over 50
which
journalists,
is closed now.
Which is now closed. He was delivering this statement. Over 50 journalists, were brutalized in front of the UN Human Rights Office. Right? You could describe this day better.
Like I say, I'd rather bring so much hope, but if I keep describing the situation, I might depress you more. But if you insist, Moses, yes, journalists were beaten up. We were delivering a petition of the missing people, our friends that were picked. The picking up continues. They were picked up by security and they disappeared, never to be seen again. So we presented a petition to the UN Human Rights Office. But the military came and beat all the journalists in front of the UN Human Rights. Anyway, the UN Human Rights Office has been closed now. But of course, the UN Secretary General was happily in Uganda a short while ago, maybe 2.5 weeks ago. That's like I said, I don't want to depress you. Christopher, sorry, let me first interrogate Chris, and then maybe you can get some questions. Okay. Chris, like I've shared with you in the past, my own hope in making this film, first when you suggested it, my hope initially was that, well, the young people will see our story and they'll be inspired to get involved in their politics. So my hope was to inspire young people to get involved in politics. And then as it progressed, the brutality increased and my hope changed to hoping to invite the nation to see what's happening in Uganda, what has been kept away from the eyes of the world. And by the end, the hope was to keep the camera around us so the regime gets to know that the world is watching. As you know, it kept hoping. But you, as the visionary, what did you hope to, what impact did you hope this film would create?
Well, firstly, I mean, just going back to the question you were saying, what I found surprising about the film, what I found surprising was their courage. And I just couldn't believe that Bobi and Barbie and Nubian and all the people around you, the courage was just beyond expectations. And it just kept, I remember Bobi saying to me just after the election, you know, another election had been robbed, and he said to me, you seem down. Pick yourself up. And I was just like, well, there we go. You know, that's Bobi Wine. And that's why he's so loved back home, because in a desperate situation, he picks people up. He never allows people to be down for long, and he's always, you're always giving hope to people, which is why it works so well. Well, I mean, when I started, my hope was, and my biggest fear was, that we would make this film and Bobi would give us this incredible access. I mean, the access was amazing. We were just with him the whole time. He never stopped us shooting anything. So there was not, you can't see this or you can't do that. It was just like, shoot away. And my big fear is that we would let them down by not getting enough exposure for the film. So I thought we're going to, you know, go through of this with John, our producer, and would go through all this, would put in all this effort, and then the film would kind of not be seen by enough people. And that was my real fear. So every time, you know, we got picked up by Nat Geo, which was incredible because they've been beyond brilliant, and we got into the Venice Film Festival, and so we've had all of these little things which have all added up to lots of people seeing the film and lots of people seeing the plight in Uganda, and it's a film that really matters, because, you know, making documentaries is about change, it's trying to show light, but this is a film that could actually liberate a nation, because I was in an audience with Bobi, and this Chinese gentleman stood up and he said, I'm an artist in China, we're under terrible oppression, and as a fellow artist, is there some advice you can give me? And Bobi looked at the poor guy and he said, wow, your problems are much bigger than ours. And this poor guy, his face dropped. But Bobi went on to explain what he meant. He said, your regime is self-funding. Our regime is supported by the West. If we can get that tap turned off, they can't play the army, they can't buy equipment, they can't oppress their people. So it's a doable mission. You know, it's a totally doable mission. So that's why the film's really important. And this is not a film about the past. It's ongoing. I mean, Bobi, can we see your T-shirt, please?
Wow.
I mean, this is just one person, you know, who's incarcerated. There's children, there's women, there's men, there's all these people, and it's ongoing. People are being picked up all the time. You know, what they do, which is really horrible, is they go after the little guy. So the guy with the Bobi Wine T-shirt, the guy who's got a little poster of Bobi Wine, or who's seen, you know, at a rally, they go after these people who don't have a voice, don't have lawyers, don't have anyone to protect them, and they pick them up, they torture them, they lock them up, they leave them in the gutter, and then these guys spend their whole time trying to find them and help them. I mean, it's brutal. So it's a really important film, and I'm just so pleased that, you know, we've got to this point where your story is out there.
I need to speak out of line, but where is Olivia Lutaya?
Thank you very much. Olivia Lutaya is a young mother of two girls. She was picked up, abducted, and she was missing for 2 weeks until the military finally said they have her. Olivia was taken to the military court and she was charged in the court martial. She was charged for apparently dressing in such a hat that I'm wearing, because back home the regime says this is military wear. Never mind, I wear it every day, but I'm never arrested, but everybody around me speak. So Olivia, after the torture and brutalization, she was thrown to prison. She has been there for 3 years without trial. Olivia, together with hundreds of political prisoners, are in prison and charged in the military, and their only crime is supporting the opposition and standing with us. Yes, Olivia was young. She was not yet 30 when she was thrown in jail. She continues to be a face of oppressed but resilient people young people, especially women. Like I said, she's a young mother of 2 children who continue to miss her and many others. I was just about to ask Chris for his message to the world, but I'll ask that question to myself. So, Bobi, what's your message to the world? Yeah, on a serious note, on a serious, funny note, but very serious.
Before you continue,
yeah,
there is so many people like Olivia. Olivia is just one of them. But there are so many, some whom we do not know were arrested or picked up, you know, because they were not close in the movement. Some that were riding motorcycles in the villages, you know. So there are many stories like that. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
President.
it was absolutely right. In fact, just to add on your comment, Bobi there, and thanks to her, she and other women are looking after 189 children whose parents are either missing or in prison illegally or were killed. She has a non-government organization called Caring Hearts Uganda that helps us a great deal in sustaining those people. All this is happening because the world is tolerating it. Uganda, unlike other countries, is heavily dependent on aid, and it is the aid that's doing all those things. For all those friends of ours who are run over by security trucks, these trucks were either written on either Danish aid or US aid or something, you know, that run over our people, that kill our people. The United States gives to the tune of $1 billion every year to General Museveni. We have always requested that this aid, that this collaboration comes with conditions, because if there are conditions, not so much, but just the values that bring us together: respect for democracy, respect for human rights, and respect for the rule of law. If only we can get that, if only we can be able to say, to have a different opinion without being killed, if only the world can stop supporting that impunity, it will be the best for us. Finally, Moses, yes, I want to ask you, you cannot go to Uganda. You are here seeking political asylum, but you're a young person, an African young person who also speaks to the world. What would your message, if you were to give a message, especially to young audiences in Africa and all over the world, what would your message be?
Wow, that's a huge question. I know what I want to say, but I think you should answer that question, Mr. President.
Thanks again. What can I say? I always like to sing to the young people and tell them, we are the country, we are the future, we are the change we badly need. We are the youngest population in the world, we stand a chance. We are the leaders of the future, and the future is today. If we only come together, we can change our destiny. I want to tell the young people in Africa and all other oppressed places that it is upon you. Mandela told us it always falls upon a generation to be great, to transform not only their life, but the lives of those that are coming after them. The young people of America changed America. The young people of Europe changed Europe. The young people of Africa can change Africa. We, especially in Uganda, can only spark this, can only, point to the way. We might not even get there. Of course, we want to get there. We want to see freedom in our lifetime. But if we don't, at least we want to point a way and to have others follow it. So it's upon you. Nobody else is going to do it for us. We can do it. We should do it. We should do it in a different and moral way, non-violently. Because if we do it non-violently, we would win violence, and violence will ultimately be suppressed. American citizens have power over guns. Guns don't have power over them. We want to have power over the guns so that the will of the people reigns supreme. It's upon you, the young people. Now, the rest of the world, don't leave us alone. Don't stand and watch us. You can help us from the comfort of your living room. You can help us with the comfort of a button on your phone. We request you to spread our message to help us, the world know us. All the evils of the world's history, slavery, colonialism, and all that were only ended when they were exposed. Help us expose this. I am alive today because of a tweet that I made when I was just about to be abducted, and it was shared with the world. So if this film has touched you, please share it with your friend, share it with your relative. Help us spread this message far and wide. For us, it is not just a film. It is a layer of safety, knowing that the world is watching us. And finally, those that can go an extra mile, please help us. Reach out to your leaders, your congressmen and women, and ask them to review the policy in Uganda. And, you know, we're not asking you to help us come remove Museveni. We're only asking you to stop sponsoring our oppression. And we know that you're actually sponsoring it, whether you know or you don't know. It's your taxpayers' money. If you put conditions on your taxpayers' money, man, you will help us live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My gosh.